Okay, so super important that with the horses you have space conversations, whether it's you're in the paddock or you're outside the paddock. So right now, I'm outside the paddock, but that doesn't mean that my personal space ends here at the gate, right? It's really important. So many people get run over when horses try to go through gates, or, they try to kind of squeeze themselves through the gate and the horse is coming at them. When horses do these kind of behaviors around gates, they will do it in all the other aspects that you're handling the horse, whether it's leading the horse, whether it's saddling, whether it's riding. When they're pushing into your personal space, they're not honoring us as the lead. It's that simple. And so one of the things that we can do as a very foundational step is to honor our personal space. So in general, your personal space is as big, above you, to the side, in front, behind, and all the way down to the ground. And it's a bubble, right? And the easiest thing is to literally give your bubble a color so you can see it very clearly. And if you can see it very clearly, you can see, the horses can see it too. They can feel it, right? Because you're putting your focus into it. Wherever our focus goes, right, that's where our energy flows. And so you can see that all this huffing and puffing that they did when you first came stopped. It stopped because I'm standing here, right? And it's just my energy and this idea of this is my personal space. And my horses know they're not allowed to argue with each other when I'm around because it's dangerous, right? They argue with each other and one horse tries to get away. There's a very good chance if you don't have a really good personal space established that you get run over. So this idea that my intent, right? My thoughts are that my personal space, I can make it bigger and I can shrink it. Right? And you probably all have experienced when somebody comes in a room and they really command the room and everybody is looking at them. That's really just somebody that is really aware of their personal space and their energy. Right? So when it comes to gates, right? So this is electric fencing, but it applies to electric fencing. It applies to a metal gate, whatever you have, right? I want to be able to open the gate in a way that my horses are respectful of my space. So my intent is this is my personal space, right? My energy fills that personal space. I can use my body language, right? If I have horses that are not used to this kind of conversation and I do, I might have to do jumping jacks. I might have to do whatever, right? I'm describing my personal space. I'm not like pushing the horses away and sending my energy towards them because that's dominant. And so what happens when you show up as dominant, depending on how much dominance you use, the horses can be afraid of you. If you have a dominant horse and you're acting dominant, the horse might look at you and say, oh, really? Let me show you what dominance looks like. And then they start to argue with you. And then they start to talk back at you. And then we have horses that still come in our personal space. And we constantly have this, stay away. And the horse is like, no, I'm coming back. Stay away. So we just describe our personal space, right? My energy is in the ground. So I really ground myself. And I literally see my energy going into the ground. And I'm really rooted, like I'm growing roots, right? When I start walking towards the gate or opening the gate, right, my energy comes out of the ground and now is with me and my energy moves with me. So my entire bubble and my energy moves with me. I always move the gate into the space because then I can use the gate to further describe my personal space, right, like this. I don't know if that's my name. Gas. So if I can't call my horse, I would have to walk over there, right? But mine are pretty used to being called. gonna just allow Gus to come through here.
So with it, it's right there.
Okay. So it's really important that we have these conversations. The reason why I let Gus come through here the way I did, that he actually trotted and just came through without really asking me, was I wasn't paying attention. And I didn't have a chance to say anything else because I was focusing on what I was saying and on the camera. Something that I usually wouldn't do, right? I saw him coming and I'm like, too late. The reason why it's too late is because horses are twice as fast as a human athlete in their response. So we're never fast enough to counteract a horse that has already made up their mind, right? Once they're already at it, that's why it's so important to be really come from a perspective of watch yourself. That's why it's so important that you really have a plan each time you do something with a horse. And then you can pre-plan and you have the steps in place, and then you have a conversation. You're giving your horse something to do, your horse gives you an answer, right? And then depending on what the answer is, we have another, maybe we have another question for the horse, or we give other instructions. But to me, it's very important to have that two-way conversation. Most people that train horses have a one-way conversation. They say, you do this, you do that, you don't do this, you do this, you better do it now, don't do that. And it's constantly like that. And that will never, ever create a conversation that is based on connection. That will never create a relationship that is based on connection. And it's not confidence building. When you have a boss that constantly tells you what to do, you do this, you do that, you don't do this, do you feel confident with that person?
No.
I feel horses do the same thing. So I want to come from a perspective, A, that my horse always feels safe with me. So as soon as I come, the whole ruckus with Sari and Navi stopped. So he can feel safe with me. And Sari and Navi, they accept me as the lead in the herd. Okay? And that's where most horse training comes from the communication of the dominant stallion, right? But the stallion is in the back of the herd. His job is procreation. That's why every 1.5 to 2.5 years, a new stallion comes in and they fight for their position, right? The bigger, bolder, more bodacious, stronger stallion will win. And then he gets to be with the herd. Why is that? Because the gene pool needs to be refreshed, right? The lead mare, she's not fighting for that position. She gets voted into that position. And it's often an older mare that isn't like super physically, agile or anything like that, but she's got the experience and the wisdom, and she makes benevolent decisions for the herd. And no horse will say, yeah, not feeling it. You guys go ahead and I'll join you later. Those are conversations that horses have with us all the time. Or, hell no, I don't want to go where you're going, right? Conversation that horses have with humans. They will never have that with a lead mare. They trust her, they believe in her, and that's part of the safety in the herd. And so everything that I do comes from a perspective of, I want my horses to feel safe with me, I want my horses to feel confident with me, and to me that is empowering, right? They can be a good learner, they have a better quality of life. I look for them that they're mentally, emotionally, and physically balanced, and that in return keeps me safe. When you're looking at the insurance industry, horse sports are right there with motocross, right? Because people get hurt all the time. And so, because people get hurt all the time, they put a helmet on, they wear a blow-up vest, they wear steel-toe boots, whatever they do. But in the end, that is just something that we're doing to protect ourselves with a tool versus having a relationship with our horse that the stuff that happens that causes accidents doesn't happen in the first place. So from my perspective, when you go to the mailbox can you fall and get hurt? Of course you can, right? But what are the chances? And so that's how I want to be with horses, and that's how I teach my students. And all of that comes from that I had a really, really scary accident, and I always almost gave up on my horses because I just didn't know how to feel good and joyful. I was constantly afraid. Everything I did, even just looking out of the window and thinking about going down to the barn, I had butterflies in my stomach. My heart was pounding. My hands were sweating. I'm like, I should really like clean the windows. And I would use excuses so I wouldn't have to go and do stuff with the horses. And so when you have any questions about the horses, just always feel free to come to me. And this conversation about gaits, that's one of the first steps that you can do to establish yourself with the horses.